Strain episode 12, Last Rites. So we're at the penultimate episode for this season. Next week is the season finale. And I thought this was a really good episode leading up to it. I feel like story wise, it only had one really big moment, and that was actually towards the end of the episode where the main characters actually lost their base of operations, which I really didn't expect. Considering it came in only a couple episodes ago, I thought this place is gonna kind of be where they set up shop. They're gonna be here for a while. When they go out, that's they're gonna leave and do their missions. Then they come back at night, and that's where they're safe pretty much. But I guess it makes sense that they did that because then it would just be too commonplace. And for this type of show, I guess it would be sort of static if they just left and then they came back because they fell every week. So what would be the real danger? Like the danger would be who's gonna die during the certain missions, but odds are no one would. They're only really like a handful of characters, so they can't really kill off a bunch of people and just be like, well, just bring someone new in and sort of ruin the feel of the show. But I thought that was really cool at the end. I was not expecting Icarus to just come in with his people and just destroy the place, but there were a lot of really cool moments in this episode. Of course, we had three really sad moments. One, of course, Nora lost her mom. That was really messed up. And it was really interesting that the one that killed her was actually the Rockstar guy, so we actually saw him come in. And we didn't see him get killed off either. They didn't actually kill off any of the ones that broke into the house. But we got to see him again, but of course Nora lost her mother. And that actually ended up tying into the story for Abraham, which I really enjoyed in this episode. We actually got to see who the heart belonged to. And of course we all knew that it was someone he loved. And we get to see who that is, and we see what happened. And it's the last real part of their adventure together, and you could tell that with the little bit of info we got from her character, they'd been doing this for a while, and she knew the issues that came along. And I figured that the issue that she had with her leg actually came about from them hunting the master and trying to defeat these monsters. So it was really cool to get that story and see that flashback, and it was really messed up, but it was a really good flashback. And Abraham, like, he climbed out of a well. That was really crazy. He had to save his girlfriend, so he runs back, and of course she's gone. And then when she comes back at night, I thought that was a really cool scene, the way they did it. And of course she brought like two kids, and I thought that was really interesting too. And he had to kill all of them, but it tied in with Nora's moment at the end of the episode where she had to decapitate her mother because otherwise she would come back and be a monster. So it was a really cool way for them to connect the story, even though they didn't have to. The flashback really on its own was great because it was something that we wanted to see in the episode or in the series in general. But the way that they tied it together with what was happening in the present, I thought that was really well done. And it might bring a closer connection between Abraham and Nora, because he can, especially considering what they did in the beginning of this episode when he first got back to the house. He sat down and he was sitting in front of the heart, and the only person that saw him doing that was Nora. So I think they're going to use this episode as an opportunity to bring them closer together. And it could have just been this one moment, but I'm hoping that they do end up becoming a bit closer, where he helps her and he says, like, hey, I went through this same thing you asked me before, and I was really mad, like, what's the deal with the heart? And he'll give her the story and stuff, and they'll bond because of that. But I thought that was really good. We got to see Gus's side of the story, and honestly, the only reason I know his name is because it was in the info for the episode, so I finally got his name, and I'm going to try to make sure I remember that. But we see his side of the story, and he's running around. He runs to the guy who he sold the car to a few episodes ago, and we find out that guy unknowingly is actually connected to what's happening, and the guy that gives him a bunch of money to deliver this big cargo container is actually full of vampires. So that was really interesting, and I'd love to get more info on that, which we might get next week, because of course by the end of this episode we run into the rogues. I guess that's what I'm just gonna have to call them. But we run into the rogues, they take Gus, they leave the other guy. So I'm also curious about, why would they choose one guy over the other? Why does it, like, how does he really know what Gus has been through compared to this other guy, and how Gus could possibly be more helpful than this other guy? So I can't wait to get more answers on that, and I feel like they have to, because they won't just have him get kidnapped and then they don't show any of that in the season finale, because I think that's really what most of us want to know, is like, who are these people that are turned but aren't following the rule of the master? So I'm excited to see that next week. Overall, I thought it was a really good episode, and also at the end of the episode, we see the master actually go to the older guy. I can't think of his name, of course, and he does bring him back to life. And he doesn't give him immortality, which we find out in the preview. That kind of spoiled that. I wasn't sure if he did or not, and I thought maybe he would actually become like Ikehurst and kind of the rogues, where he can do whatever he wants, of course, until he decides to betray the master, and it would just take a while. Like when his body would naturally die, that's when he would become one of the monsters. But in the preview, it kind of just threw all that out the window, and he just healed him for a little bit. So we'll get to see exactly what's going on there. The master doesn't think he's going to be useful forever, apparently, but he's useful for a little bit longer. So I'm excited to see how that storyline continues to play out. He might end up pushing his luck, and the master might tell Icarus to just take him out. But I thought it was pretty cool in the end. He's been on his deathbed for quite a while now, so he was saved and he was really happy. So I want to see how that plays out in the next couple. Well, I guess the next episode. The emergency broadcasting thing that they did in this episode also really good. I think the big implications for that plot point won't be seen until next season, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that it has a really big push for the story where it just brings people in, like whoever might still be in New York City and was able to randomly see that on TV. When they run across them, it's like, oh, that's the guy, and he said this and that. So let's see, and you'll have people who probably saw that and decided, well, we happen to have a family member who sadly turned, but we can at least test this and see, is this guy just full of crap or is he telling the truth? So I think it'll kind of be like that. That's just my guess for season 2. They'll be able to get more people to come into the fold because they're gonna have seen what I've said, and they found out that it was true. So I'm excited to see what that'll do, but like I said, I don't think that'll happen until season 2 really. But good episode, and of course the emergency broadcasting stuff wouldn't have happened if our hacker character hadn't come back. So that was cool to see her come back. She's just not dead. She came back. She had a great plan for the team, which F replied, it has to be a win. So hopefully it does end up being a win, or at least does something for the city where it helps people survive or something like that. But them introducing the fact that they're already just gathering up vampires and trying to ship them across the country or ship them to other countries across the world, really, it's a great plot point that they could explore. I'm sure they will explore a lot more of in next week's episode, but I'm sure that's going to be a really big thing for season 2, and it's going to be like Gus and the Rogues kind of dealing with that side of things where they're trying to keep it from going international while the other main characters are trying to just destroy the master in general. So I'm really excited for next week's episode. They had a lot of cool points. Where are they going to end up? What's their base of operations going to be? What's going to happen with Nora after having to deal with her mother's death? Of course, what's going to happen with Gus? What do the Rogues want with him? And what are they going to do to try to stop things from going international? And I doubt we'll get any backstory in next week's episode as far as the flashback goes, but I think they still have some stuff that they could tread, especially with the relationship between Ikehurst and Abraham. We don't really know if they met after that. The way they spoke, it kind of seemed like there were only a couple moments, and there's one other moment that they've already mentioned, and it was when they both mentioned how they lost someone, and they mentioned that Ikehurst lost a partner right after he was talking to Abraham and said, like, hey, you lost your girlfriend. And then Abraham kind of had to come back with him and say, like, well, I did the same thing to you at some point in time. So we might get that next week, but I kind of doubt it. I feel like they're going to be going sort of full force with everything that's happening. And another huge plot point that they haven't done yet, I think they're going to have Kelly come back in next week's episode. I believe that's her name if I'm remembering it right. But F's ex-wife, they sort of played with that last week, but they didn't actually have her there. And I think with it being the season finale, them possibly catching up to the master, and they showed that in the preview, like they found the coffin again, so the master's probably around. They might bring her back for real this time, and it won't just be her voice, and she'll actually be there to try to take down F. But I'm excited. I thought this was a great episode leading up to the season finale. A lot of cool plot points that just got just shot in right at the end there. So they're going to explore some of it next week, but I know most of it for sure is going to be for season 2. But definitely excited for next week. It's going to be a really great season finale, I believe. Of course, comment below. Let me know what you guys thought about this one, your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, and what do you guys want to see in the season finale. There are, of course, a ton of plot points, some that just got introduced this week, and some that we've been waiting to get answers to for pretty much the entire season. So what do you guys want to see in this season finale next week? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.